A forgotten tunnel once saved an entire civilization from collapse. Behind the grand monuments and written records of the ancient world lies a hidden history written in secret passages. These were not just architectural quirks, they were powerful tools that decided the outcome of wars, preserved entire cultures, and redirected the flow of human progress. In this exploration, you will discover 23 covert routes that secretly shaped the rise and fall of empires. We will venture into the Great Pyramid's mysterious shafts and the life-saving tunnels beneath a desert city, revealing how a single concealed doorway could alter the destiny of millions. How much of our past remains hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered deep within the Great Pyramid of Giza, far from the main chambers tourists see? A network of narrow shafts pierces the ancient stone. For centuries, these mysterious tunnels were dismissed as symbolic pathways for the king's soul, but their true purpose is far more complex and ingenious. These are not simple holes, they are engineering marvels carved with breathtaking precision, pointing directly at specific stars in the night sky. One shaft aligns with the constellation Orion, associated with the god Osiris, while another targets the pole star, a symbol of eternity. This was not a coincidence. It was a deliberate act, turning the entire pyramid into a cosmic clock and a spiritual launchpad. The pharaoh's soul, it was believed, would use these celestial highways to ascend to the gods. Think about the immense effort required. Workers carved these perfectly straight, narrow passages through millions of stone blocks, all while the pyramid rose around them. Was it just for spiritual symbolism, or did it serve a more immediate, practical need during the decades of construction? Some researchers propose they provided crucial ventilation for the laborers deep inside the mountain of stone, a secret lifeline that enabled the grand project itself. The debate truly ignited when a robotic camera was sent into one sealed shaft, revealing a small door with copper handles. What lay beyond? The answer remains one of Egyptology's greatest puzzles, a perfect example of how a hidden passage can be both a feat of engineering and a key to an entire worldview. This blending of the spiritual and the practical, hidden in plain sight, leads us to another civilization that carved its secrets directly into the heart of a mountain. Far from the Egyptian desert, another civilization mastered the art of hiding in plain sight. The city of Petra, hewn from rose-red cliffs, presents a breathtaking facade of temples and tombs. But its true secret to survival lies not in what you see, but in what runs beneath your feet. A vast, hidden network of tunnels and channels transformed this desert fortress into a green oasis. The main entrance, a magnificent natural canyon called the Sick, was itself a carefully managed passage. But beyond this grand corridor, the Nabateans carved a web of subterranean waterways. An archaeologist who has studied the site for decades describes it as a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering, a secret system that turned scarce rainfall into a reliable water supply. They built hidden aqueducts within the canyon walls, carved terracotta pipes, and constructed massive underground reservoirs that collected every drop of winter rain. This hidden infrastructure was their ultimate defense. During a siege, while enemies languished in the dry valley below, the people of Petra had enough water stored to last for months. One specific tunnel leading to the Grand Ad-Dar monument served a dual purpose. It was not just a processional route for religious ceremonies, it was also a potential escape route, a secret path to safety high in the mountains. Can you picture a city thriving in the desert, its power derived not from its visible wealth, but from the water secretly flowing through its veins? This hidden network allowed Petra to control the lucrative trade routes, demanding water and protection tolls from caravans crossing the desert. Their economic dominance was built, quite literally, upon the passages they kept concealed. This idea of a hidden lifeline becomes even more dramatic when the survival of an entire people hangs in the balance. Beneath the sun-drenched streets of imperial Rome lay another city, a city of the dead that became a sanctuary for the living. The catacombs, endless labyrinths of tunnels and burial niches, stretched for hundreds of miles. For early Christians facing brutal persecution, these silent corridors were far more than a final resting place. They were a secret network for survival. In a world where public worship could mean death, the catacombs provided a hidden stage where a fledgling religion could grow in the shadows. Historians note that these passages were not originally built for secrecy, but they were perfectly adapted for it. Their sheer scale was their greatest defense. A service could be held in a decorated chamber deep within one branch, while Roman authorities searched in vain through another. The catacombs of Domitilla, for instance, sprawl over 17 kilometers and descend 4 levels, a maze where a hidden doorway or a false wall could conceal an entire congregation. Within these cool, dimly lit tunnels, believers gathered not just for prayer, but to strengthen their community bonds, sharing meals and ideas away from the watchful eyes of the state. Can you hear the faint echoes of chanted hymns, muffled by layers of earth and stone, a sound of defiance that would one day echo through the very halls of power above? These secret meetings were crucial. They allowed for the uninterrupted transmission of doctrine and the ordination of new clergy, ensuring the faith's structural survival even as its members were hunted. Accounts describe narrow escape routes and camouflaged entrances that opened into ordinary homes or vineyards, allowing worshippers to vanish back into the city as if they were never there. This hidden infrastructure did more than just protect people. It preserved an idea, allowing Christianity to solidify and spread until it was too powerful to suppress. The power of a hidden space to safeguard a belief system is profound, but what happens when a secret passage is designed not to protect an idea, but to conquer a fortress? The fall of Troy did not begin with a battering ram, but with a gift. The legendary wooden horse, an offering to the goddess Athena, stood before the city gates. Its hollow belly was a secret passage in its purest form, a hidden compartment large enough to hold a small band of elite Greek warriors. This was not merely a physical deception, it was a masterstroke of psychological warfare, a trick so effective it rewrote the course of a decade-long war. Classicists point out that Homer's epic poem immortalized the event, but the underlying tactic resonated across the ancient world because it spoke to a universal fear, the enemy within. The horse's design was a covert entry point, a way to bypass the city's legendary, impenetrable walls not by breaking them down, but by being invited inside. Can you envision the scene, the Trojans debating this strange, silent offering, their suspicion finally overcome by a desire for victory and the belief that the gods were now on their side? The moment they dragged the massive structure through their own gates, they sealed their fate. The soldiers hidden inside waited for nightfall, emerging not just from a wooden shell, but from the very heart of the deception to open the city to the waiting army. While the horse itself may belong to myth, the strategy was grounded in historical reality. Ancient histories from other cultures are filled with similar ruses, from soldiers concealed in merchant carts to tunnels disguised as mining operations. The core idea remains the same: use a hidden space to turn a position of strength into a fatal vulnerability. How could a single, concealed doorway lead to the collapse of a great city? Because it bypassed every external defense and attacked the one thing walls could not protect: human trust. This legendary act of covert invasion shows the immense power of a single hidden passage, but other civilizations built networks of concealment on a scale that is almost impossible to fathom. While the terracotta army stood as a silent, visible guard, the real secret of Emperor Qin Shi Huang's tomb lay deep underground. Archaeologists working near the famous clay soldiers made a startling discovery: a network of hidden tunnels radiating from the massive burial mound. These were not just architectural features, they were a final, desperate attempt to secure power for eternity. Chinese archaeologists believe this subterranean labyrinth served a dual purpose: as a secret route for spiritual rituals performed by priests and as a last line of defense against tomb raiders. The entire complex was designed as a mirror of the emperor's earthly domain, a hidden kingdom where his authority would continue unchallenged in the afterlife. This belief that power could be preserved beyond death through concealment profoundly influenced imperial traditions for generations. The engineering behind these passages was as advanced as it was terrifying. Ancient texts describe rivers of flowing mercury, crossbow traps rigged to fire automatically at intruders, and concealed entrances designed to collapse, burying secrets and thieves alike. Can you conceive of the mindset required to build such a place, to invest so much in a world no living person would ever see? Recent excavations using magnetic sensors and ground-penetrating radar have revealed anomalies suggesting a vast, uncharted network, potentially connecting the main tomb to other, distant sites. This pattern of secrecy was not unique. Other royal tombs from the same period, like those of the Han Dynasty, also feature false burial chambers and hidden corridors, showing a deep cultural obsession with posthumous security. How does a hidden passage preserve power beyond death? By creating a permanent mystery, a fortress for the soul that keeps its treasures forever out of reach. This desire to control a legacy through hidden means takes a different form when the goal is not to hoard power, but to share knowledge across a vast and dangerous landscape. High in the jagged peaks of the Pamir Mountains, a secret world of trade and travel unfolded far from the main caravan routes. These were the hidden arteries of the Silk Road, treacherous passes known only to a handful of local guides and trusted merchants. While the main routes bustled with traffic, they were also plagued by bandits and the watchful eyes of tax collectors. The real flow of transformative ideas and goods often traveled these covert mountain trails. A historian specializing in Eurasian trade explains that without these secret passages, the Silk Road as we know it might have collapsed under its own weight of danger and bureaucracy. It was through these hidden corridors that Buddhism quietly journeyed from India into the heart of China, and that the closely guarded technology of papermaking seeped westward, eventually revolutionizing communication in Europe. The geography itself was a formidable guardian. Passes like the Karakoram presented a brutal landscape of thin air, sheer rock faces, and unpredictable weather. Navigating them required more than just courage. It demanded the specialized knowledge of local mountain communities. These guides became the keepers of the routes, passing down the secrets of safe passage through generations, ensuring their communities profited from the trade while keeping rival empires and raiders in the dark. The Tang dynasty in China and the later Mongol Empire both understood the immense strategic value of these paths, using them to move messengers, troops, and luxury goods with a speed and secrecy that their enemies could not anticipate. How could a narrow trail, invisible from the valleys below, alter the destiny of continents by allowing silk, spices, and scripture to flow when official channels were blocked by conflict or greed? These hidden networks didn't just move merchandise, they quietly stitched together the cultural fabric of the ancient world, creating connections that would last for millennia. And sometimes the purpose of a hidden passage was not for trade, but for the ultimate escape of a king. A king's most valuable possession was not his crown, but a secret way out of his own throne room. Across the ancient world, palaces were designed as much for escape as for ceremony. On the island of Crete, the sprawling Bronze Age palace of Knossos was a maze of courtyards and corridors, but its true genius lay in its hidden features. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of lightweight partition walls that could be slid aside to create new pathways, and narrow, twisting staircases that led from royal apartments down to unassuming side streets. These were not mere service tunnels, they were emergency exits for the ruling elite. The famous myth of the Minotaur's labyrinth may well have been inspired by this very real, confusing architecture, a place where a ruler could vanish in an instant. Imagine the political stability this provided. A sudden coup or a revolt within the palace walls did not have to mean the end of a dynasty. It could mean a swift, silent retreat to a prearranged safe haven, allowing the ruler to live to reclaim power another day. In Egypt, the pharaohs incorporated similar secrets into their sprawling royal residences. Hidden chambers lay behind ornate wall panels, and underground tunnels connected the palace to nearby temples or the river, providing a liquid highway to safety. There are accounts from court inscriptions alluding to plots thwarted and rulers escaping certain capture, not by force of arms, but by simply disappearing through a concealed doorway. How many royal successions, and therefore the course of entire kingdoms, were decided not on the battlefield, but in the quiet moments when a hidden corridor was used? This architectural secrecy was a direct tool of statecraft, ensuring that a single moment of political violence did not irrevocably shatter a regime. The ability to disappear from a place of supreme power required profound foresight, a mindset that looked beyond the grandeur of the present to the perils of the future. And this same desire to access hidden realms also drove the creation of passages meant not for the body's escape, but for the soul's ascent. The grandeur of a Mesoamerican pyramid was only half the story. Beneath the towering stone steps and sweeping plazas lay a hidden circulatory system of tunnels and chambers, secret passages that breathed life into the spiritual world of the Maya and the Aztecs. At Chichen Itza, the famous El Castillo pyramid is not one structure but several, built one over the other like layers of an onion. Deep within it, archaeologists discovered a hidden passage leading to a submerged cave, a direct physical link to the sacred cenote, the natural sinkhole the Maya believed was a portal to the underworld. This was not merely an architectural feature, it was a sacred conduit. Anthropologists who study these sites explain that these tunnels were essential for rituals, particularly those involving offerings and communication with the gods. The most dramatic of these were human sacrifices. A priest descending a concealed stairway to the cenote to make an offering was not just performing a ritual, he was traveling between worlds, using the hidden passage to bridge the realm of the living and the realm of the divine. The engineering of these spaces was as precise as their spiritual purpose was profound. Internal passages within pyramids were often aligned with celestial events. On the equinoxes, the play of light and shadow on El Castillo creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down the staircase, an effect that would have been coordinated with ceremonies happening in the hidden chambers below. Can you envision the power of such a spectacle, the way it fused astronomy, architecture, and faith into a single, overwhelming experience for the people gathered below? The priests who emerged from these secret openings during key astronomical moments appeared to be agents of the cosmos itself, their authority derived from their command of these hidden routes. This control over sacred knowledge and the very architecture of belief reinforced a rigid social hierarchy, ensuring the ruling class maintained its grip on power. The discovery of older, smaller pyramids encased within the larger ones shows how each new layer of construction was also a new layer of secrecy, burying the old gods while proclaiming the power of the new. How does a hidden passage become a bridge to the gods? By transforming the act of disappearing and reappearing into a divine miracle, a physical journey that proves a spiritual connection. This manipulation of perception through concealed movement was not limited to temples. It would soon become a decisive weapon on the battlefield, changing the face of warfare forever. A king could hide in a corridor, but an entire civilization could disappear beneath the earth itself. In the heart of modern Turkey, the rocky landscape of Cappadocia conceals one of the ancient world's most astonishing secrets: vast underground cities that delved 18 stories deep. Derinkuyu is the most famous, a labyrinthine metropolis capable of sheltering 20,000 people for months at a time. This was not a temporary hiding place. It was a fully realized society built in reverse, with everything from stables and wineries to churches and schools all hidden from the sun. The sheer scale of these cities reveals a community that lived with the constant threat of invasion, choosing to build their resilience not upward in imposing walls, but downward in a maze of profound concealment. How did they manage such a feat? Historians point to the region's soft volcanic rock, which was pliable enough to carve yet strong enough to support these massive excavations. The construction was a generations-long project, with each level dug deeper to accommodate a growing population seeking refuge from armies sweeping across the plains above. The true genius of Derinkuyu lay in its systems for survival. Massive, circular stone doors weighing half a ton each could be rolled across key passages to seal off entire sections from invaders. Elaborate ventilation shafts, some stretching over 100 feet to the surface, provided a constant supply of fresh air to the deepest chambers, while hidden wells tapped into underground water sources. Can you envision the coordinated silence of thousands of people living in the dimly lit tunnels, their world reduced to the glow of oil lamps and the echoes of a life conducted in secret? These cities became a sanctuary for early Christian communities, who used the hidden underground churches to worship freely while Roman soldiers searched for them on the surface. This clandestine existence allowed their faith and culture to solidify and spread, directly influencing the religious landscape of the Byzantine Empire. The passages also served as tools of war, with carefully disguised exit points allowing defenders to launch surprise attacks on besieging forces before vanishing back into the ground. How does a society preserve its culture? Not by building monuments, but by erasing itself from view. It creates a living archive, a seed of a community that remains safe underground while the world above burns. This ability to hide an entire population required a level of coordination and secrecy that would later be perfected for a different purpose, not for protecting the masses, but for deploying a single, highly trained individual. A king's hidden corridor could save a dynasty, but a spy's secret tunnel could dismantle an empire from within. In the vast realms of Persia and Rome, intelligence was a currency more valuable than gold, and it flowed through a network of hidden passages known only to a select few. These were not grand escape routes, but covert channels carved into palace walls, disguised as drainage ducts, or running beneath the streets of the capital. Military historians point to the sophisticated spy networks of the Achaemenid Persian Empire, where royal messengers known as the King's Eyes used a system of hidden mountain paths and camouflaged way stations to carry sensitive information across thousands of miles. This hidden highway allowed the king to monitor his satraps, quell rebellions before they began, and receive news from the frontiers with astonishing speed. The training for such agents was rigorous, involving not just stealth and combat, but the memorization of complex routes and the art of blending into the local population. Their success depended entirely on these unseen arteries of information. Can you conceive of a battle being won not on the field, but days earlier in a secret tunnel where a single scroll changed hands? In Rome, the intricate sewer systems and catacombs provided perfect cover for moving agents and messages, turning the city's own infrastructure into a weapon of state security. This reliance on covert intelligence was mirrored in the East. The Han Dynasty in China developed an extensive secret police force known as the censors, who operated through a web of informants and used hidden access points within government buildings to conduct surveillance on officials. These secret passages were not just physical, they were bureaucratic, allowing information to flow directly to the emperor while bypassing the official chain of command. The impact on governance was profound. A whispered report delivered through a hidden courtyard door could lead to the sudden fall of a powerful minister, reshaping policy overnight. These networks were also tools of active deception. A false rumor about troop movements, strategically leaked through a trusted spy in a hidden meeting place, could lure an enemy army into a fatal trap. Or a secret alliance could be secured in a chamber behind a library, its existence denied by all parties until the moment it was activated. How much of an empire's stability relied not on its legions, but on the quality of its secrets and the hidden passages that carried them. This shadow war of information required a level of trust and secrecy that finds a strange parallel in the next form of hidden space, one designed not for deception but for divine connection. Within the echoing stone halls of Karnak, the priests of ancient Egypt moved like ghosts. Unseen by the crowds gathered in the sun-drenched courtyards, they navigated a secret world of narrow corridors and hidden staircases built directly into the temple walls. These were not service tunnels, they were stages for a divine performance. When a massive statue of a god seemed to suddenly speak or a priest would materialize from behind a seemingly solid wall, it was not magic, it was meticulously planned theater. These architectural secrets were the very tools that forged the connection between the people and their gods. Egyptologists explain that these passages were symbolic of the hidden paths to the afterlife, a physical representation of the journey the soul was believed to take. By controlling these routes, the priests demonstrated their unique access to the divine realm, making their authority seem as permanent and unassailable as the stone around them. The construction was a marvel of deliberate deception. Walls were built with pivoting stone panels, and false floors concealed descending staircases, all designed to allow movement without ever breaking the illusion of supernatural presence. This practice was not confined to Egypt. In ancient Greece, temples like the Oracle of Delphi used similar hidden access points. The priestess, the Pythia, would deliver her prophecies from a chamber often reached by a concealed entrance, her trance-like state and the mysterious, intoxicating vapors rising from a fissure all part of a carefully managed spectacle that shaped the political decisions of city-states for centuries. How much of a society's faith is built not on doctrine alone, but on the power of the unseen, the controlled mystery that only a select few can navigate? These hidden corridors did more than facilitate rituals. They reinforced a rigid social hierarchy where the priestly class held a monopoly on divine communication, ensuring their influence over every aspect of daily life, from law to agriculture. The ability to appear and disappear at will was a form of power that kept the populace in awe and the social order intact. This control over perception, so potent in the spiritual realm, was a skill that would prove equally valuable in the gritty, practical world of moving goods across a contested landscape. A river could run in complete silence, hidden just beneath the sand. While the grand aqueducts of Rome were monuments of open power, other civilizations mastered the art of concealing their most vital resource. Across the arid landscapes of the Middle East and South America, secret water passages known as canals and hidden aqueducts were not just feats of engineering, they were strategic tools for survival and dominance. Hydrologists who study these systems describe them as underground canals, gently sloping tunnels that tapped into distant mountain aquifers and guided the water for miles, entirely hidden from the sun and from potential enemies. This was covert transportation in its purest form, moving life-giving water across a desert without a single visible mark on the surface. The Nabateans of Petra perfected this, as we have seen, but the Persian empires built canal networks that stretched for thousands of miles, creating a subterranean web that turned barren plains into lush, productive farmland. The engineering was deceptively simple, yet required profound skill. Workers dug a series of vertical shafts down to the water table, then connected them at the bottom with a horizontal tunnel, allowing gravity to do the rest. These shafts provided access for maintenance and ventilation, but from the surface, they appeared as nothing more than a line of innocuous holes in the ground. How could a secret water source determine the success of a civilization? By making its agriculture resilient to drought and its central water supply virtually immune to sabotage during a siege. An enemy army could camp on top of a canal and never know the reason a city remained defiantly green. This hidden infrastructure directly fueled urbanization, allowing powerful cities to rise in the middle of deserts, far from any visible river. The Inca took this concept to the mountains, building hidden stone canals along nearly impassable cliff faces to supply remote settlements and ceremonial centers like Machu Picchu. These secret waterways allowed communities to thrive in hostile environments, influencing migration patterns by enabling populations to settle in previously uninhabitable regions. They were the ultimate economic asset, granting a civilization the ability to produce surplus food and sustain a large population, which in turn supported artisans, soldiers, and a complex government. The control of these hidden passages meant control over life itself, a form of power that was both silent and absolute. This mastery over a concealed resource required a level of foresight and organization that finds a parallel in the next form of hidden passage, one designed for a far more personal and urgent need, the escape of a king. The silence of a besieged fortress could be broken by a sound from within its own walls, a sound no enemy expected. At the mountain fortress of Masada, Jewish rebels held out against a Roman legion for months, their defiance made possible by a network of hidden paths and cisterns carved into the cliff face. These were not just storage areas, they were secret arteries that allowed the defenders to move, communicate, and gather resources long after the main gates were sealed shut. Archaeologists excavating the site have found evidence of these covert routes, including tunnels that provided access to hidden water reservoirs and allowed scouts to observe the Roman siege works undetected. The psychological blow to the Romans must have been profound, to see a seemingly defeated enemy still active and supplied from sources they could not find. This strategy of concealed defense was replicated across the ancient world. In medieval castles across Europe and the Middle East, builders incorporated postern gates, small hidden doors often concealed by vegetation or located near a moat. These passages served as a lifeline, allowing messengers to slip out to seek help or for surprise sorties to harass the besiegers. A small band of knights could emerge from a hidden sally port under cover of darkness, burn enemy siege engines, and vanish back into the fortress before an alarm could be raised. How many sieges were broken not by a relief army charging across a field, but by the slow, grinding attrition enabled by these secret routes? They allowed a garrison to hold out just long enough for disease to ravage the enemy camp, for a political situation to shift, or for an ally to finally arrive. The very knowledge that a fortress possessed such hidden advantages could deter an attack altogether, as a potential besieger would have to calculate the risk of a prolonged and uncertain campaign. In some cases, these passages served a final, tragic purpose, providing a way for a defeated garrison to escape and preserve their lives and their knowledge, ensuring that a culture or a military tradition could survive a lost battle. The secret passage in this context was more than a tunnel. It was a tool that stretched time, turning a swift defeat into a prolonged resistance that could, in itself, alter the historical outcome of a conflict. This stubborn refusal to be fully contained, this reliance on hidden depth, finds a powerful echo in the ways entire communities chose to hide their most sacred knowledge from the world. The scent of papyrus and cedar oil filled the air, a perfume of knowledge that clung to the legendary library of Alexandria. While its grand halls were open to scholars, legends whisper of a hidden circulatory system, secret passages and chambers designed to protect its most precious scrolls from fire and political fury. These covert routes were not just architectural quirks. They were a desperate bid to preserve humanity's collective memory against the tide of chaos. Historians specializing in the ancient world point out that the library was far more than a repository. It was a living, breathing brain trust for the entire Mediterranean. Its eventual destruction, whether by a single fire or a slow decline, represents one of history's greatest intellectual catastrophes. But what if its most vital works were not lost but hidden? Ancient accounts from various sources, often contradictory and shrouded in myth, speak of clandestine rooms beneath the main complex or tunnels connecting to the nearby Serapeum temple. These spaces, if they existed, would have been the ultimate safeguard. Imagine a curator hearing the shouts of a mob or seeing the glow of an approaching fire, directing scribes to carry baskets of the most irreplaceable texts down a hidden stairwell, sealing them behind a false wall for a future that might never come. The contents of such a cache would be unimaginable, perhaps containing the complete plays of Aeschylus, the lost histories of Babylon, or scientific treatises from Athens that could have accelerated human progress by 1,000 years. This pattern of intellectual safeguarding was not unique. Other ancient centers of learning, like the library at Pergamum, were also rumored to have hidden archives, and the famed House of Wisdom in Baghdad later employed similar tactics to protect knowledge during periods of unrest. The impact of this lost knowledge echoes through the centuries. How different would our world be if the works of the great inventor Archimedes, only partially recovered from a single palimpsest, had survived in their entirety? The scientific revolution might have begun not in the 1600s but in the 1300s. A historian of science muses that every lost text represents a question unasked, a path of inquiry closed off for generations. These hidden passages, then, were not just physical spaces. They were a final, fragile barrier against a new dark age. They represent the profound understanding that knowledge is the true currency of civilization, more valuable than any treasure, and worth hiding to ensure its survival. How many of our greatest leaps forward were merely rediscoveries of truths that were once known, then lost because a secret chamber remained sealed? This desperate effort to protect ideas through concealment stands in stark contrast to a passage built for a very different purpose, one designed not to hide knowledge, but to facilitate a conversation that could prevent a war. A king's most sensitive conversations were never held in his throne room. Across the empires of the ancient Near East, the true architecture of power was carved in secret, with hidden tunnels connecting royal palaces to discreet meeting chambers. These were the clandestine pathways of diplomacy, allowing rulers to negotiate away from the prying eyes of their courts and the pressures of public expectation. Political historians point to evidence from Mesopotamian city-states like Mari, where clay tablets detail the construction of subterranean routes specifically for the private movement of ambassadors. The goal was absolute confidentiality, ensuring that a proposed alliance with a rival or a delicate peace treaty could be discussed with a level of candor impossible in a formal setting. The very design of these spaces guaranteed this secrecy, with thick, sound-absorbing walls, a single concealed entrance, and often a private courtyard for the arriving party to enter unseen. Think of the Hittite and Egyptian empires, locked in a cold war that culminated near the Syrian city of Kadesh. While the official records boast of pharaonic might behind the scenes, a frantic exchange of messages and envoys traveled through covert channels, likely using such hidden passages in allied palaces to hammer out the details of the first recorded peace treaty in history. That agreement, etched onto a silver tablet, stabilized the entire region for generations. But these same corridors could also facilitate betrayal. A hidden meeting could just as easily seal a pact to divide a weaker neighbor's lands, reshaping borders through a conspiracy that left no public trace until the armies began to move. How many wars were prevented, or how many were secretly set in motion, within the hushed silence of a chamber reachable only by a hidden door? The trust required for such covert dealings was immense, for a ruler was placing his physical safety in the hands of his host by stepping into that concealed space. This delicate dance of hidden diplomacy, where a single whispered conversation could alter the fate of millions, reveals a profound truth about statecraft, that the most pivotal moments often occur in the shadows. And from these passages built for political survival, we move to those carved for a different kind of enduring legacy, the expression of the human spirit under persecution. The roar of the crowd in a Greek amphitheater could be silenced in an instant by a figure rising from the very center of the stage. Beneath the wooden planks of the orchestra floor lay a hidden underworld of tunnels and trapdoors, a secret network that turned drama into pure magic. At the great theater of Epidaurus, renowned for its perfect acoustics, these concealed passages were not just for storage, they were essential instruments of performance. Classicists point out that these features, known as the Charonian steps, were believed to be portals for ghosts and gods to enter the world of the living. An actor emerging from below did not just make an entrance, he materialized from the underworld itself, his sudden appearance sending a wave of awe through thousands of spectators. This was engineering in service of emotion. The trapdoors were counterweighted for smooth, silent operation, and underground channels could be used to amplify specific sounds, like the clanking of chains or a ghostly whisper, creating an immersive soundscape that reached every single seat. Can you hear the collective gasp as a deity ascended on a hidden elevator, a spectacle of divine power made possible by ropes and pulleys hidden beneath the stage? These mechanisms allowed playwrights like Aeschylus and Euripides to explore profound themes of fate, justice, and the whims of the gods with breathtaking, visceral impact. A hero could vanish into the earth, or a fury could erupt from it, making abstract moral lessons terrifyingly real. The hidden passages also enabled the swift scene changes and sudden revelations that were the backbone of comedy and political satire. A corrupt politician might be lampooned by a character popping up from a trapdoor, a daring act of critique made safe by the anonymity and surprise of the concealed entrance. This control over spectacle directly shaped Western storytelling, establishing conventions of dramatic reveal and narrative pacing that resonate in our films and plays today. How much of a story's power lies not in the words themselves, but in the way they are delivered from the shadows? The ability to manipulate an audience's perception through hidden means was a form of cultural power, one that could unite a city in a shared emotional and ethical experience. This mastery of concealment for public storytelling finds a poignant parallel in a final, more intimate form of hidden passage, one meant not for the applause of the living, but for the eternal journey of the dead. A pharaoh's final journey did not end at the tomb door. Deep within the Valley of the Kings, beyond the grand burial chambers, a war of wits was carved in stone against the grave robbers who would plunder eternity. The architects of these sacred spaces designed them not as simple resting places, but as intricate labyrinths of deception. False corridors led to dead ends, deep pits were carved into passages to trap the unwary, and hidden chambers were sealed behind plastered walls painted to look like solid rock. The entire tomb was a lethal puzzle box, its true treasure chamber concealed somewhere within its confusing geometry. Egyptologists explain that this maze was not merely a security system. It was a physical representation of the Juwat, the dangerous, winding underworld the king's soul had to navigate to achieve rebirth. Each turn, each blocked path, and each hidden door mirrored the challenges faced in the afterlife from demons and deceptive spirits. The discovery of Tutankhamun's nearly intact tomb by Howard Carter in the 1920s stands as the ultimate testament to the success of this strategy. While larger, grander pharaonic tombs were stripped bare centuries ago, Tutankhamun's modest, hidden entrance, tucked beneath the debris of later royal constructions, was overlooked. The moment Carter peered through a small hole into the antechamber, he was greeted by the strange and wonderful sight of golden couches, carved animal heads, and a flash of gold, everywhere the glint of gold. That single, undisturbed collection provided an unprecedented window into Egyptian religion, art, and daily life. The meticulous mummification process, the food and wine left for the journey, the golden shrines nested one inside the other, all these secrets were preserved because a hidden passage successfully delayed looting for over 3,000 years. How can the rituals surrounding death tell us more about how a civilization lived? They reveal their deepest fears, their most profound hopes, and the immense value they placed on an existence beyond the visible world. The preservation of these tombs, secured by their deceptive passages, gave modern archaeology the raw materials to reconstruct an entire worldview, from the gods they worshipped to the games they played. This profound act of concealing a single tomb to protect its contents finds a parallel on a much grander scale, in the hidden passages that shaped the very layout of an entire city. The same stone that channeled waste also charted a secret map of the city. While grand aqueducts brought fresh water into ancient Rome, a hidden mirror world ran beneath the streets, a sprawling network of sewers like the Cloaca Maxima. These were not merely drains, they were covert corridors that served the city in ways far beyond sanitation. Initially an open canal, the Cloaca was eventually vaulted over, creating a subterranean passageway large enough for a small boat to navigate. This hidden infrastructure was a public health marvel, drastically reducing waterborne diseases and allowing Rome to sustain a population of over 1 million people. But its uses were dual in nature. During fires or civil unrest, these tunnels provided unofficial routes for the movement of officials, messengers, and even troops, completely unseen by the populace above. An urban planner specializing in ancient infrastructure notes that the existence of such a reliable sewer system directly influenced urban development, enabling denser housing and more complex social organization, as the city was no longer constrained by the immediate threat of plague. The engineering itself was a monumental achievement, built with a gentle, consistent slope to ensure a self-cleansing flow, and constructed from massive stone blocks that have endured for 2 millennia. This concept of the hidden civic passage was mastered even earlier in the Indus Valley city of Mohenjo-Daro. There, a sophisticated grid of baked brick drains ran beneath the streets, complete with inspection manholes and channels that directed waste away from residential areas. This attention to subterranean detail reveals a society deeply invested in communal well-being and public order. Can you envision a city guard using a maintenance access point to emerge unexpectedly in a troubled district, or a family fleeing a fire by descending into a storm drain? How does a society's hidden skeleton, its veins of water and waste, determine its resilience and its capacity for surprise? These passages provided a form of civic resilience that was both practical and covert, a testament to the idea that a city's greatest strength might lie in the channels it keeps out of sight. This mastery of the underground world for public utility finds a direct parallel in the next form of secret passage, one driven not by the need for cleanliness, but by the relentless pursuit of mineral wealth. A city's military might was often forged in the dark, away from the sunlight of the agora. Deep beneath the hills of Laurium in Greece, a secret network of tunnels snaked through the rock, their walls glinting with the precious metal that would bankroll an empire. This was not just a mine, it was Athens's clandestine treasury, and the silver extracted here in secret directly financed the naval fleet that defined its golden age. Economic historians point to the immense strategic advantage this hidden resource provided. During the protracted Peloponnesian War, the steady, covert flow of silver from Laurium allowed Athens to build and maintain the triremes that secured its trade routes and projected its power across the Aegean Sea. The mining techniques were as brutal as they were brilliant. Enslaved laborers working by the faint light of oil lamps used fire setting to fracture the rock, heating the stone with fires, then dousing it with vinegar or water to make it shatter. The secrecy surrounding these operations was paramount. Guarding the mine entrances and controlling knowledge of the richest veins were matters of state security, preventing rival city-states from targeting this economic lifeline or inciting slave rebellions from within. How could a civilization's most visible achievements, its Parthenon and its plays, be built on something so hidden and harsh? The answer lies in the mint. This silver was stamped into the iconic Athenian owl coinage, a currency so trusted it became the standard across the Mediterranean. That single coin, passing from a merchant in Egypt to a mercenary in Sicily, carried within it the story of a dark, hidden tunnel and the backbreaking labor that filled it. This covert extraction powered not just warships but the entire Athenian economy, funding public works and payments to citizens for jury duty and other civic roles, creating a direct link between a hidden passage and the birth of democracy itself. The wealth drawn from these subterranean veins shaped trade networks, incentivized exploration, and established an economic model that empires would emulate for centuries. But what happens when the pursuit of such tangible, earthly power requires a passage of a different kind, one meant not for extracting wealth, but for escaping the world altogether? High on a wind-scoured cliff, a monk's only doorway might have been invisible from the path below. In the remote monasteries of Tibet and the isolated hermitages of early Christian Europe, sacred spaces were often designed with a second, hidden life. These covert corridors and secret chambers were not built for escape alone. They were the architectural guardians of spiritual continuity. During periods of violent persecution or political upheaval, these passages allowed monastic communities to preserve the very heart of their faith. A religious scholar who studies these sites describes them as vessels for the soul of a tradition, places where rituals could continue undisturbed and sacred texts could be hidden from desecration. In Tibetan Buddhist monasteries, like the ancient Sangha Choling in Sikkim, prayer rooms were sometimes connected by concealed staircases leading to meditation caves carved deep into the mountain itself. A monk could vanish from the main hall to spend weeks in solitary contemplation, his absence itself a form of spiritual defiance. The architecture was a masterful blend of concealment and symbolism. A passage might be hidden behind a thanka, a richly painted religious scroll, or accessed through a pivoting section of a rock wall that appeared utterly solid. These routes were often integrated with the natural landscape, using existing caves and fissures that were then extended and refined by hand, making them indistinguishable from the surrounding stone to any outsider. In the deserts of Egypt, early Christian monks built their cells around hidden cisterns and secret tunnels that connected them to a central, concealed church, allowing them to gather for the Eucharist without alerting Roman soldiers. Can you sense the profound silence of a liturgy whispered in an underground chamber, a faith sustained not by grand public displays, but by the quiet certainty of a hidden space? These passages did more than protect individuals, they safeguarded knowledge. Priceless manuscripts, from illuminated gospels to philosophical treatises, were sealed in cavities within walls or stored in hidden libraries accessible only through a crawl space behind an altar. This act of concealment allowed entire literary and theological traditions to survive through the darkest periods of suppression, ensuring that when the world was ready, that knowledge could emerge once more. How does a faith endure when its outward expressions are forbidden? It turns inward, finding strength and sanctity in the hidden, the personal, and the patiently preserved. This stubborn preservation of sacred knowledge in the face of adversity created a foundation of learning that would, in time, shelter a very different kind of pursuit, one that sought not to hide from the world, but to understand its most fundamental secrets. A stone circle stands silent under the night sky, but its true purpose was unlocked only by the priests who knew its secret geometry. At sites like Newgrange in Ireland, a long, narrow passage leads deep into a burial mound, engineered with a precision that seems to defy its ancient age. Above the entrance, a small, hidden opening called a roof box was designed for a single, spectacular purpose. For just a few minutes at dawn on the winter solstice, a beam of sunlight shoots through this secret window, illuminating the central chamber in a golden glow that lasts for precisely 17 minutes. This was not an accident, it was a deliberately calibrated event, a hidden passage transforming into a celestial clock that marked the year's rebirth. Archaeologists studying these sites explain that the knowledge required to align a structure so perfectly with the solar cycle was a form of power as potent as any army. The priests who controlled this hidden information could predict the turning of the seasons, telling their people exactly when to plant and when to harvest, thereby controlling the very rhythm of life and death in their society. The engineering itself was a monumental task, requiring generations of observation to plot the sun's slow drift across the horizon before committing that knowledge to tons of unyielding stone. Can you conceive of the authority held by the one who could announce from within a hidden chamber that the sun had officially returned and the new year had begun? This pattern of covert astronomy repeats across the globe. In Mesoamerica, the Caracol Observatory at Chichen Itza is a tower riddled with narrow, slit-like windows aligned with the path of Venus. The Maya tracked this planet's cycles with such accuracy that they could predict its appearances for centuries, events that dictated the timing of war and the coronation of kings. These hidden sightlines, invisible to the common person looking at the structure, were the scientific instruments of their day. Their impact wove itself into the fabric of myth, with stories of gods battling in the heavens often serving as metaphors for these observable celestial events. How could a hidden passage dictate the daily life of an entire civilization? by transforming the terrifying randomness of nature into a predictable, manageable order. The priest, emerging from his secret observatory to declare the god's will, was in fact delivering a weather report and agricultural schedule derived from rigorous, concealed science. This deep connection between hidden astronomical knowledge and cultural authority created a bridge not just between earth and sky, but between entire peoples separated by vast oceans. Sometimes the most vibrant colors were mixed in the dark. Beyond the official caravan routes, a hidden network of mountain trails and subterranean way stations allowed for the quiet transfer of far more than silk and spices. These were the secret passages for cultural exchange, where art, music, and revolutionary ideas flowed between isolated civilizations, evading the watchful eyes of hostile empires and rival kingdoms. A cultural historian specializing in these interactions notes that these covert corridors were often the true incubators of innovation. When cultures met openly, it could be under the shadow of conquest or through the rigid formalities of court diplomacy. But in the hidden spaces, exchange was freer, more experimental, and driven by mutual curiosity rather than imperial command. The risks were immense. A merchant carrying a banned religious text or a scroll of foreign musical notation could be executed if discovered, yet the rewards reshaped the world. Buddhist monks, for instance, did not always travel with royal patronage. Many moved along these secret mountain paths, carrying sutras from India into Central Asia and China, carefully translating and adapting their teachings to local contexts, away from the scrutiny of Confucian officials who might see their philosophy as a threat. This clandestine migration of belief systems allowed Buddhism to put down deep, resilient roots long before it was officially recognized. The visual arts tell a similar story. After Alexander the Great's empire fractured, the Hellenistic artistic style did not simply vanish. It traveled covertly along trade routes into regions like Gandhara, in modern-day Pakistan and Afghanistan. There, in workshops hidden from mainstream view, local sculptors began blending Greek realism with Buddhist spiritual subjects, creating the first ever statues of the Buddha in human form. This was a monumental artistic revolution born from a hidden dialogue. Can you envision a sculptor in a secluded cave, carefully studying a small Greek figurine, then applying its techniques to depict a serene, enlightened being, thereby creating an image that would eventually grace temples across all of Asia? These secret interactions blended traditions, enriching civilizations in ways that public, official contact often failed to achieve. The music of one culture could influence the instruments of another, or a hidden philosophical text could inspire a new school of thought far from its place of origin. How much of our shared global heritage is the product not of grand proclamations, but of these quiet, dangerous, and profoundly fruitful meetings in the shadows? This underground current of shared ideas, however, would soon find its power harnessed for a far more volatile purpose, as the same hidden networks that spread art began to carry the blueprints for political revolution. A rebellion could be born in a cave, its plans whispered in a tunnel far from the master's ear. While kings used hidden corridors to escape, the oppressed dug them to fight back. Secret passages became the clandestine infrastructure of revolt, the unseen network that allowed slave and peasant armies to organize, communicate, and strike with devastating surprise. Political scientists who study historical insurgencies note that these covert routes were a force multiplier for the powerless, negating the advantages of a better armed and organized enemy. The most famous example is the gladiator Spartacus, who in 73 BC used the hidden gorges and caverns of Mount Vesuvius as a natural fortress and a secret base. From there, his forces could launch raids on Roman villas and then vanish back into the landscape, their movements concealed by a web of known trails and underground passages. The planning behind such networks required immense coordination and trust. In ancient China, peasant rebellions like the Yellow Turbans often used the vast, hidden spaces of the countryside, abandoned mines, remote mountain temples, and complex river deltas to gather forces and store supplies away from the eyes of imperial magistrates. The construction was a communal act of defiance, with rebels digging concealed tunnels connecting safe houses within a city or creating hidden compartments in wagons to transport weapons. Can you envision the tense silence of a meeting held in a cellar, the fate of an uprising resting on a plan conveyed through a hidden messenger who arrived under cover of darkness? These passages enabled more than just attacks. They were vital escape routes for leaders facing capture, ensuring that the ideology of the rebellion could survive even if a battle was lost. A single concealed doorway in a city wall could allow a key organizer to slip out moments before the authorities arrived, carrying the names of sympathizers and the plans for the next strike to a new cell. How does secrecy become the ultimate weapon for those with nothing else? It transforms desperation into strategy and isolation into a unified, invisible front. The very existence of these hidden passages demonstrates that even the most rigid social orders had cracks, and through those cracks, the determined could forge a path toward change. Finding these lost corridors requires more than just a shovel and a guess. Modern archaeology has become a technological detective story, using tools like ground-penetrating radar to see through stone and earth without ever breaking the surface. This device sends radio waves deep into the ground, mapping subterranean voids and hidden chambers by measuring how the signals bounce back. It is like giving the earth an X-ray, revealing the ghostly outlines of a staircase or a tunnel that has been sealed for millennia. Another method, LiDAR, uses lasers fired from an aircraft to strip away dense forest canopy, exposing the precise contours of ancient landscapes and revealing hidden entrances and roadways that were completely invisible from the ground. These technological advances have fundamentally reshaped our understanding of the past. An archaeologist working at a Roman site described the moment a radar scan revealed a perfectly straight anomaly leading away from a villa, a servant's passage, or an escape route no written record had ever mentioned. It forces a complete rethinking of how daily life and power dynamics functioned within those walls. The process is deeply interdisciplinary. Historians scour crumbling scrolls and temple inscriptions for any fleeting reference to a hidden door. Engineers then analyze the structural feasibility of such a passage, while physicists operate the sensitive equipment that confirms its existence. This collaboration recently led to the stunning rediscovery of a secret tunnel system beneath the temple complex of Taposiris Magna in Egypt, a potential clue in the long search for Cleopatra's final resting place. Every new find carries the potential to rewrite a historical narrative. The confirmation of a hidden chamber in the Great Pyramid, still unexplored, challenges long-held theories about its construction and purpose. What other passages lie beneath the world's most famous monuments, holding secrets we have not yet dreamed of? With every scan and every decoded manuscript, we peel back another layer, inching closer to a fuller, more astonishing picture of the ancient world and the hidden architecture that shaped its destiny. These hidden corridors, from the Great Pyramid to the mountain trails of the Silk Road, reveal a startling truth. History was not shaped solely in sun-drenched plazas or on open battlefields, but in the shadows where secrecy became a tool for survival, innovation, and profound transformation. Across 23 civilizations, we see a consistent pattern. Concealed routes decided wars, allowing armies to appear as if from nowhere or letting kings vanish from besieged palaces. They preserved entire cultures, sheltering faiths in catacombs and safeguarding knowledge in library vaults, ensuring ideas could outlast any empire. They were the stage for spiritual power, where priests used hidden doors to manifest the divine, and entire cities like Derinku carved out a world beneath the earth to protect their people. A historian who has spent a lifetime studying these spaces offers a powerful reflection. The greatest mystery of the ancient world, they suggest, is not the monuments we can see, but the profound human ingenuity we cannot. These passages are more than forgotten stone and earth. They are enduring symbols of our relentless drive to persevere, to protect what we hold sacred, and to find a way forward even when all visible paths are blocked. They remind us that the course of our world was often guided by unseen hands moving through unseen spaces. Now we turn the conversation over to you. Which of these secret passages captured your imagination the most? And do you have a theory about a hidden corridor that remains undiscovered? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If these journeys into the forgotten corners of history have sparked your curiosity, subscribe for more explorations into the enigmas that have quietly shaped our world. The past is not a closed book, but a labyrinth, and every hidden doorway invites us to look